Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 15 of the Live Your Jam podcast. My name's Ellen McGinnis, and I'm your host. Today's conversation is a special one for me. It's about caring about our body, which is a vital approach to the Live Your Jam philosophy. I believe that we're all souls having a human experience, and the bodies we're given, these vessels, are meant to be treated with care and reverence. So, taking care of our bodies in many ways is an act of self love. And it's much more difficult to calm the mind when we don't feel strong in our bodies. So that's why exercise and nutrition are vital to listening to our inner wisdom, those messages and inklings from our soul. So my guest today is a friend of mine and somebody I met 6 years ago when we were both living as expats in Zurich, Switzerland. And our lives overlapped in many ways that expat lives do. Our eldest boys were in the same grade at the international school. We shared a love of hiking and the outdoors. We were both active in the school PTA. And then we were often at the same social gatherings. And we're fortunate because we found that quiet sense of finding your people when you're far away from home that often can be a challenge in expat life, but certainly is a joy when you meet those people. So my friend is from the UK, and while our paths eventually have moved us back to our respective home countries, I feel grateful that we've stayed connected. So welcome everyone to Jane Price Hunt. Jane, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here. Jane, we're going to talk about your expertise and that you are certified as a body mat Pilates instructor. You're certified in hip Pilates and the Wunda chair, the one, as the Swiss might say, the Wunda chair and reformer
Yep.
Pilates. And you are a lifelong athlete. And so we're going to talk today about the importance of caring for our bodies, especially after 50, and how movement, mindset, and self-trust come together as we age. So you do this for a living. You are a fitness expert, and I want to welcome you again and dive into how you are helping women stay fit and lead their best life at middle
Thank
age
you.
and beyond. So let's just start a bit about your own journey, how you found Pilates and how it became such an important part of your life. I mean, such an important part of your life that you now teach others about it.
Sure. So I've always been sporty. I guess I kind of categorize it almost in decades that, in my teens and at school, I loved basketball, I loved gymnastics, netball. And kind of when I got to university, it was kind of how can I carry on being fit and healthy? What can I find to do next? And I guess what worked in my 20s was going to the gym. I think back then, step aerobics was huge. So kind of lifting weights in the gym and finding classes that I could connect with other people. And then running. I think running was a big one for me in my 20s. And then in my 30s, things changed. I started having kids, and I think your body then does really start to have an impact on you. I kind of ligaments soften, and what was working for me in my late 20s, I was skiing, I was playing tennis, I was running, I was at the gym, suddenly started to hurt. With softened ligaments, I started getting prolapse discs in my lower back and had to kind of reassess what I was doing. And that's where, with my second son, we'd moved to Copenhagen, found a fantastic teacher who was French, and started going to Pilates classes with this French Pilates teacher. And it just really helped through my second pregnancy, stopped the aches and pains and the niggles, and got me through the other side of pregnancy. And then I realized how much I loved it and that I just kept on going. And so it wasn't until we moved back to the UK and then went out again to Zurich that COVID hit. And what I was doing as a business kind of marketing consultant just stopped. COVID had that effect, I think, to a lot of people. And so I couldn't fly in and out of London anymore. I wasn't doing the kind of marketing work. So I thought, what next? It was actually a mutual friend of ours, Kerry, that introduced me to Bassi Reformer and Matt Pilates, a comprehensive program in Switzerland. And absolutely hooked, loved it, and thought, why not? Why not retrain? It was a good time. I wasn't working, I was living abroad, and it gave me a purpose and a kind of challenge to see if I could actually make this something that I could teach others.
You've been sporty all your life and dedicated to fitness. And it sounds like when you had kids, that, some of the prolapse really caused a reason to strengthen the ligaments and probably the core. And then you found it again in Switzerland, right?
Yeah, I think we carry on, 20s, 30s, we think we're invincible. And, we carry on weight training or lifting weights or working out in the gym, probably not really with a program as such. I have had PTs from time to time, but it wasn't until I really started doing Pilates, I realized it actually looked after your core and supported those smaller muscles in your body that helped everything else. And so, skiing was increasingly painful. Standing by the football sidelines was so painful. My lower back really did suffer. So I think it wasn't until I'd suffered that pain through some of the other sports I was doing that even yoga became so painful that I actually realized I needed to go back a few steps and actually go back to a basic Pilates mat class and actually learn some of the basics of knitting our core back together, and actually after pregnancy, just kind of building those blocks again. So it definitely gave me a wake-up call that you can't just keep on doing what you're doing and expect to just, be as fit and healthy without some of the building blocks. And I think that's what Pilates really gives you, is that strength and that core strength to be able to do everything else.
Yeah, really wonderful explanation here. I mean, I think it's true as we keep kind of pushing ourselves and all of a sudden you have to go back. We just don't have the resiliency anymore. And so you have to build the foundation. So that sounds like that was the essential part for you, is really going back and building the core and those smaller muscles and making kind of the system function at a more optimal level so you could get back to doing some of the things that you love. So, Pilates is a big deal for women in their 50s, and so is, strength training. And I know you do that as well. But how would you describe Pilates to someone who doesn't know a lot about it?
So essentially, mat Pilates is using your own body weight. And so Joseph Pilates, when he actually devised the whole program, he was born in Germany. He actually had a lot of childhood illnesses. And so for him, he wanted to not only cure his own body, but he studied bodybuilding, he studied gymnastics, and he actually studied yoga. And through these methodologies, he found ways of actually helping others. And it was during the war, when people were bedridden, that he devised the springs on beds to actually mobilize people. And that's where the reformer came from. It was a bed with springs, and actually it's a moving carriage that is low impact. And I think anything on the reformer now, reformer is probably the most well-known of all the equipment pieces, but the reformer does take a lot of control, but it is good for people with injuries. So anything that's low impact can actually help with your moving your body, you're strengthening, but at the same time, it's a lot lower impact on your body. Whereas running, for example, might not be suitable for everybody. The reformer has that control with straps and springs that can actually help the body move well. So reformer is one of them. There's many more. I probably won't go into all of them, but there's the tower, there's the ladder, there's the barrel, there's the spine corrector. There's lots of different ones. But I think the mat as well is probably the easiest one to start with, because it's just using your body weight. You're just rolling out a mat. You can go to a class, you can do it online. It does obviously take instruction, and a lot of people, I think, find it quite difficult at first to really feel the connection in the body. But I think it's also tuning into your body, and that's what I love about Pilates as well, is understanding how your body feels that day, listening to your body and moving with your body and your breath. That I think really gives it a lot of meaning and actually gives it a lot of kind of headspace, as well as just working out. I do love lifting weights, but I think Pilates gives you that headspace at the same time.
Yeah, when you say headspace, and when I think about the Pilates classes that I have done, I think it's really mindfulness, because you mentioned that around the connection to the body and that is, I think, for listeners, a little bit of it's like the joy of Pilates, but it's the initial kind of barrier sometimes, is that it's a lot of mind-body connection. So you're very focused on what you're doing, and you do need instruction for it. But once you can make those connections, it's you're really tuning into your body. Do you agree with that, what I just said, number one? I'm kind of paraphrasing and putting together what I think I heard you say. It's like an experience in mindfulness because you're really thinking about the activities and how it feels in your body.
Absolutely. No, concentration is one of the 6 principles of Pilates. And
Oh,
I think it is. Yeah, it
yeah.
is. And I think it's a great one because a lot of my clients at the end of an hour's class will kind of almost come out of Zen-like trance and be like, oh my gosh, that went so quickly,
Yeah.
because they have been focusing inwardly. And I think life is so busy. We all run up to class having gone through traffic, dropped off kids at school. Everyone's busy coming in, got to get this done, then got to get off to work or errands or whatever else. And so it's that hour of focus that is just so nice to tune into your own body, see how you feel that day. And we always work in alignment, and I think it, particularly on the reformer, because of the straps, you often get a difference from right hand side of your body to the left hand side of the body. But also on the mat, lying on the mat, you can twist to one side and feel really sore twisting the other side. So I think all of those things let you just listen to your body. Where are you feeling achy or sore or painful today? And how do you feel once you finish the class? You feel energized, you feel stretched. And I think one of the things about Pilates, and this is how I was taught, is that you always start the class standing and you always end the class standing. And it's bringing you back up into that day. You're energized, you're taller, you're stronger, you move on with your day. And I think it's a great way of just bringing that energy in to the body and then taking it out to the rest of the day.
Yeah. No, really well said. I think there's a thread, there's a similarity with Pilates and Live Your Jam in terms of the inside out approach. And when I hear you speak about this, I can understand why it's such a supportive practice for women in midlife, because we are so busy. We are doing all these things in our external life, but it's the opportunity to come inward and make the mind-body connection. And I think that's really important in the Pilates work. And then in the work that I do, it's not always mind body, it's kind of mind soul connection. So I'm trying to get people to quiet themselves. So like meditation is a good avenue for the work I do to listen to your soul, because the mental chatter will quiet it, will drown it out. But in your case, it's really Pilates as an act of, I think, mindfulness while strengthening the body and really paying attention to that. So I think it must be a respite for women, because it's a double win, because you're kind of calming the whole nervous system, right? And paying attention to the mind body. And then you're also strengthening yourself while you're doing it.
Absolutely. And I think quite often I start with breathing exercises because we forget to breathe properly. So just placing your hands on your rib cage and then inhaling and actually feeling the rib cage expand, and then bringing the rib cage in towards your belly button as you exhale, is all about the centered core breathing. And so just reminding people of that at the beginning of a class is a fantastic way to kind of settle in, kind of shut the outside world out a little bit and just start to kind of focus and center. So yeah, it's absolutely calming the mind, bringing something for women to just actually focus on themselves for a little while and actually let the body work without all the chatter that's going on in your head.
Yeah, nice. So recently I saw some posts that you had on social media. We're going to put the links to where you can find Jane in the description and the YouTube channel. But Pilates does have some barriers to entry. And what are those barriers, and what do you see as the biggest barriers, and how do you help women overcome them?
I think what I hear from women is that they either have never tried it or don't have access to a gym or don't want to go to a gym. I think a lot of women are quite fearful of going to gyms if they think it's going to be a very masculine kind of gym bro environment and not sure where to start. So I do hear that, yeah, people don't just have a general fear. I also, time is a barrier and don't have time to do this. When am I ever going to have time to fit it into my day? And so I think, there are several options. I do offer in-person classes, but I also offer online. And I think where I'm trying to kind of cater to lots of people is bringing Pilates strength fusion to people online. So people who can't come to my classes can do 30-minute classes, they can access my library, they can do longer classes if they want an hour, or there's 20-minute sessions of just literally, you've got off a plane, you need to just stretch, 20-minute stretches. So offering different variations on a Pilates class where you just roll out your mat and just kind of follow instruction is the easiest way to start. And I've had a lot of beginners join me recently. I think, Pilates has had a boom and it is being talked about a lot in the media. So beginners have contacted me and said, how do I start? And I'm just like, just come along to a class or come online. I do live classes as well as recording, so you can have some feedback from me rather than just watching a video. And so people can actually get instruction, because believe it or not, some people, it is a little bit mystifying. Neutral spine. What's a neutral spine? A neutral spine is actually different for everybody. But finding that neutral spine where you're not clenching, you're not holding yourself in a certain position. It is a slightly taught practice, and people do need to learn some of these terms, but it's not difficult.
Yeah, good. No, I think the online option is a great one. And you mentioned some of the kind of perceptions that we have, like the extra time to go to the gym. And so offering people a myriad of ways, and also to, coaching around it in the beginning so people can get more comfortable, is really working with an expert. I always say it's, one of the biggest factors is commitment, is saying, I deserve this and this is important to me in my life right now. And so I'm going to put my health first. So easier said than done, but once you do that, it's very self-affirming, and like I said in the beginning, it's an act of self-love. So there are barriers to starting anything new, right? And so I like the online portion for those who don't like to go to the gym or have the right outfit or any of those kind of things. So very, very cool. So when we were in Switzerland, we hiked all the time, and I don't know how much I talked about this. I'm sure I complained about it a bit on the hike, but I tore each meniscus in Switzerland 1 year apart, and then still hiked through it. And then I would get bursitis in my hips. So it was incredibly painful. I just wasn't going to miss out on the hikes. And I look back, I'm like, I can't believe I did that. But I healed. I had to work on some strengthening of my quads and my hamstrings to support my knees better. But that was all fixable. Right. And and I'm fully healed now, but you have a different health situation, and you've been living with a health condition. And I'm just wondering how that has shaped, how you care for your body and your approach to consistency and diligence. So if you wouldn't mind sharing that aspect of your life with our listeners.
Sure. Well, firstly, I can't believe you hiked with bursitis and torn meniscus. That's really not, that's painful.
It was terrible.
I can't believe you did that. Yeah, so I have had type 1 diabetes for, so many years. Probably 34 years now, long time. It was during my A-levels that I was diagnosed, so at the age of 18, which was a big shock to the body. That was I didn't realize anything was wrong. I didn't think I was overly stressed, but now looking back and seeing how, teenagers going through the exam process, I realized I was stressed. It's not just stress induced. People have been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes from COVID. So viruses can cause type 1 as well. So I've learned to live with it, and it's a challenge. It really is a challenge. In fact, I've had a client come to me recently who's come to do reformer with me one-to-one private because she's type 1 diabetic. And she only was diagnosed 3 or 4 years ago, but actually wanted the camaraderie of actually having somebody to talk to about it as an adult. And I think I underestimate it. In fact, I forget to mention it these days. It's a part of my DNA, it's just there. But I think it's estimated an extra 180 decisions a day are made by type 1 diabetics about how much food we should eat, how much insulin I need to inject, how much the exercise I've just done has, impacted my day. So yes, it's had its impact massively, but it's also given me a lot of determination to stay fit and healthy. I think it's unfortunate that type 2 diabetes, which is health related and lifestyle related, the two are very different. And there is a stigma around type 2 diabetes, which is a shame because, people need help. It's insulin resistance. And unfortunately, that does happen as we age. But there are lifestyle things that you can do, type 2 diabetes. So I think having that diagnosis at the age of 18 has made me very determined to stay fit and healthy for as long as I can and live a healthy, long-lasting life.
Yeah, and I think your compassion for people who do have a health challenge and are committed to their health and fitness would probably make you an excellent teacher. Your empathy and your experience, because 180 extra decisions today. And I take a class in the morning, and it can be hard to eat in the morning. I might need a little bit of nutrition to get me kind of through. So I mean, that's like a minor thing that I have. So you're thinking much more in much bigger ways. And also the stigma around type 2 diabetes. I mean, some people it's genetic, they can live a healthy lifestyle, but as they age, it's geneticism kind of catches up with them as well.
Absolutely.
And so I think that you would be a tremendous help. And also for people, the one-on-one would be really important too, so they can talk about those concerns. But some people, I just want to give a special mention for, people like yourself that are staying fit and also have additional health challenges to consider. So your commitment is really admirable. And I imagine it makes you even a more empathic and helpful teacher.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So,
Yeah.
Jane, that gets us to this thing around the commitment, right? To exercise. So what has helped you stay committed? I would imagine you're saying the diabetes is like, I want to live as long as I can. I have this real health challenge. But what do you see some of the challenges people have in terms of staying committed? And how can people do it without being rigid or self-critical?
So consistency, absolutely consistency is a major factor. And I think trying to do a little something every day. I think a lot of my Instagram posts are talking about this in terms of, getting out for a walk every day. And I know it's difficult for people who work long hours and, are indoors a lot of the time, but the impact on my blood sugars of taking a walk after lunch is incredible. And it goes for everybody. Everybody spikes their blood sugars after eating, but obviously in normal, healthy human beings, your blood sugars will be regulated by your own level of insulin in the body, whereas mine isn't, and, we have to inject. But by injecting, you can then cause a major crash. So as a type 1 diabetic, you're always trying to stay level. So just little habits go a long way. Just a walk, as simple as that. Moving around a little bit more, being a bit more active. Consistency is challenging. I think, I had a really busy January, February. Everybody was motivated. It's, the new year, new me, all of that kind of, that you see in social media and the press itself. You're going to change your life. And then people try for 5 weeks and then it all slips away and people stop coming and life gets busy. And so I think it's trying to kind of educate people that the little things do actually count. And just, fueling yourself, eating your protein and your fiber, healthy food, moving your body, it all does add up. And, you don't have to go on a 6-week shred, you don't have to starve yourself. It's kind of, general sensible health and well-being. I've actually collaborate with 2 really, really good friends of mine here. Sam, my friend who's a life coach, and Isabel, who's a dietitian. And together, the 3 of us offer workshops for free for local women in midlife, just for exactly that, to actually empower them and actually give them a safe space to be able to talk about these things, but just show how daily habits of movement or prioritizing your needs or your values and nutrition and in supplements where it matters is so important.
Yeah, I think, what I heard you say is the daily habit, a daily walk is a good place to commit to yourself too. And I think that commitment, keeping it to yourself is really empowering. And we have our own sovereignty. That's why I say, I think exercise is an act of self-love. I think for women in their 50s who've been playing roles of supporting everybody else in their lives, whether it's,
Absolutely.
working, kids, all of these things to support. It's finally the time to say, okay, I'm going to put myself first. And I think one of the ways that we can do that is by making small commitments to ourselves and following through. For somebody who's never tried Pilates, how do you suggest they start? What's one small step they could take?
So if they've never tried, I think just download download a class, roll out your
From Jane.
from me, go onto my website. There's some free classes and just roll out your mat and give it a go. I think the mat is definitely the way in. I think once you get to equipment, you're obviously talking bigger budgets in terms of finding classes and studios. I don't actually teach equipment online. There are a lot of good teachers that do. But I think roll out your mat, log on and do a class and just actually see how you feel in your body. Just enjoy it. And I think see what it does for aches and pains and niggles. A lot of people that come to me quite often have been recommended by physios. So physios always recommend Pilates.
Yeah.
So whether you've torn an ACL or you've torn a hamstring or you've just twisted an ankle, Pilates is so good for strengthening those areas of the body, stabilizing others. So grab your mat, give it a go.
Give it a try. Yeah. You could even, with your walk, your 20-minute a day walk, you could do Pilates for 10 and add that on there and you have a total of 30 minutes. So I think the mat is the best way to start. And then actually seeing how it feels to do the mind-body connection. I think that would be freeing for most women. It's just really an act of mindfulness. So great first step there for anybody who's interested in Pilates. Go to Jane's website and you can download some free things to get yourself started. Okay, I want to talk about this because we're both in our 50s. You're going to be 54 next week. I'm 57. I'll be 58 in August. Well, I know, crazy.
You don't look it.
Thank you, Jane. That's what friends do for one another. What?
Yeah.
Girl, you're
yes.
Yeah.
What?
So I've had many relationships with my body over time, and I'm sure you have as well. And I have a lot of love for this body that has done a lot of really nice things for me. But how has your relationship changed and what feels most true for you now in terms of your relationship with your body?
Gosh, where do we start? I think it's understanding when not to push it so hard. I used to love lifting weights. I used to lift quite heavy, and I now realize that isn't the thing for me anymore, despite what everybody says in the media. Lifting heavy is good for some, but I've experienced too much pain and too much lower back pain to know that I don't want to go back there. I think I can lift pretty heavy weights, 7-10 kilos. I can lift that and I'm quite comfortable with what I can achieve right now without doing crazy stuff. I know, I used to run half marathons. I used to love 10Ks. I don't think I'm going to be running another marathon. I think hands off to those who do. I think it's amazing. I think they're great, but it's just not my thing anymore. And so it's acceptance is a huge part of that. I still love to run. I did a 5K on Sunday. I think keeping strong and healthy for me is about being able to ski with my boys, being able to play tennis if we're on holiday. It's more functional now. And, I do want to be able to go up and down the stairs. We were in London on Sunday. We walked up the escalators. We didn't have to stand on the right. We were okay to walk up the escalators. So I think it is more about functional and being able to do all the sports I love. Yeah, my hair's a lot thinner than it used to be. Yes, there's a lot more wrinkles. And I'm not going to, compete with the 20-year-old Pilates instructors out there on Instagram who have 130,000 followers. It's kind of, I get that. I'm all for making women in midlife feel happier in their bodies and accepting of what they can do. And, it's so funny. Sometimes I teach at 7:00 in the morning in my garden studio. And sometimes, my lovely clients will come in and say, I'm so sorry I haven't got any makeup on and so sorry I look scruffy. And I'm like, don't worry about that. That's not the important thing here. So yeah, it's not about wearing matching crop tops. It's about feeling stronger, feeling more accepting of your body. And actually, a lot of what my clients are saying to me now is they do want to get strong. They do want to lift weights. I am helping women pivot. So I am helping women lift weights, but safely with Pilates principles so that they're not doing their back in and they're not cricking the neck. And so it's a place of acceptance. It's not easy. I think there are days where you just think, oh God, why can't I do a half marathon anymore? But I think it's what I'm doing is enough, and that's good.
Yeah, good. Well said. I think acceptance is a big part of it. I think it's also empowering at this age. Like I don't, I think the commitment is important, and sticking to that I'll speak from my own experience, and sticking to that really helps me mentally, and not in a rigid way, because there are times when things happen or you're traveling and you can't get something in, and it's okay. But when it's in my control, I do it. And because I don't want to let myself down. But yeah, no, this body has carried me through a lot. So I relate to everything that you're saying. And I think for most women in their 50s, like I don't want to compete with anybody. There's that concept in yoga of staying on your own mat, right? So not looking over what the person's doing next to you. I want people to show up and be themselves and not have to carry the worry that the ego, that there's a right way. And so I'm with you on that. So to all you women out there, just go for it. I think a lot of women can relate to this in their 50s.
I think so. Yeah. And I think, there is that kind of realization that, if we have kids, the kids are getting older, maybe leaving the nest, and, we have got a little bit more time and a little bit more freedom as kids
Finally.
do grow up.
Yeah, it's true.
And so I think that again is reclaiming our
It is a
body and
reclaiming.
reclaiming our time back for ourselves to actually think, yes, I do want to stay strong and do want to look after my body.
Right.
So, yeah.
So just transitioning a little bit here to kind of more the live your jam meaning on things. Like we're both at similar stages in our lives. We've both spent many years in significant corporate careers, and now each of us has chosen to follow something that feels more aligned and purposeful. And, for me, that's helping people live from the inside out and listening to their intuition and reconnecting with what matters with them both. So for women, it's reclaiming what is inside of you. We've been serving everybody else. So what is inside of you that you want to give birth to now? And how do you live aligned with that? For you, it's helping people take care of their bodies, helping women and stay strong and move through life with greater awareness and confidence. And, many women in the 50s, we said, have done all these things, full careers, kids, everything. So what have you learned so far in your life about following this path, this spark inside you? I mean, clearly there's a thread in your life that sport and fitness and health has always been paramount to you. But now you're following this as a means of self-expression and also in terms of bringing in an income. And so what have you learned so far in terms of following this spark?
It's funny, I always wondered when I was in my corporate career working in London, I used to, find snatches of time to run to the gym during lunch hours, used to go to a yoga class or a kind of workout class. And I always used to think at that time, I don't know if I could teach, but it's great to do it. I loved doing it. I loved exercising. But at that time, when I was in my 20s and 30s and corporate career, I never saw myself as being a Pilates instructor. And actually, I've realized that I do like sharing my kind of journey, and I do sharing why it means so much to me. And I think because I can help people, I've seen people have, pain and problems and back problems and all sorts of, problems with their body that I kind of do want to help. And I also, now that I am nearly 54, reaching the age of 52, for me, it was a big landmark. My mum passed away when she was only 52. And that was the year after I was diagnosed as diabetic. And so it was two big years in my life that had a major impact on me. And my mum was healthy, she was fit, she used to go to her Keep Fit classes. She was a very healthy woman. And I think what happened to her was out of her control. It was an environmental condition, we believe, we still don't know. It was asbestos in the lining of the lung. So that was something that we don't know if it was cosmetics or it was her environment where she was being schooled or living. We really don't know what caused it, but it happened so abruptly that for me, I worry about that kind of health condition to the point where I want to protect myself as much as I can. And suppose that has lived in me, I guess, that I want to keep helping people stay healthy and fit. It was unfair what happened to my mum. It was unfair what happened to me. Being diagnosed diabetic, I don't see it as anything that we did. So it's something that's okay, it's out of our control. But being fit and healthy and working out is something I can control. So that's where I kind of want to help people, want to share what I can see as only benefits and help people, feel that in their lives, give them that consistency and give them that kind of strength and mindfulness, give them that hour back every week or 3 times a week, however often you want to work out, and give them that strength back. Make them see that they can actually look after their bodies no matter what. There's always stuff that's going to be around the corner. What I've suffered, people are not going to suffer necessarily, but everybody has things that happen in their lives. So for me, it's that little bit of control.
Yeah. And it sounds like really purpose-driven work, right? In terms of
Absolutely.
What happened to yourself and to your mother has really shaped your purpose and that has transformed you into helping others. So
absolutely.
Very, very admirable. Would you say this is like, I try not to get it, but living your jam is, when we're really doing something that lights us up. Do you feel pretty lit up when you're helping and teaching others?
Absolutely. No,
Yeah.
I really do. Like just to see progress and, especially if people come to me with injuries and actually, come away from it actually being able to be injury free. And I had a client recently who tore her ACL. Her physio could not believe how quickly she got back to fitness. And her surgeon could not believe that 6 weeks later she skied again. And so things like that through Pilates, I just, love the fact that she trusted me to help her and trusted me to kind of help build her strength back again. And she felt empowered to be able to look after herself and to go back to what she loved. So again, absolutely. Every week, helping clients feel stronger is just great. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I agree. Being in the business and the heart space of helping others is really, really a gift. So I'm so glad that you're doing this work and you're helping others and that your content is the way you can help is easily accessible to people online. And I'm really, really grateful for our conversation today. I have a lot of friends that do Pilates and really, really love it. So I wanted to get this out there for everybody as another option to stay fit, and the mindfulness aspect of it and making the connection to the body and strengthening it is super important. So thank you so much, Jane. It's been great to see you and have you on.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. It's been so good to chat to you again.
You too as well. Okay, everybody, this is Ellen and Jane signing off. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.